Hey everybody, welcome back to Wax and Relax, the Vinyl Listening Room. I'm John, and I had a little bit of a break, lots of stuff going on, but I wanted to get back on the air and talk about some Paul McCartney and Wings. Part of what was going on recently, other than all the personal stuff that I'll get into in another video, I got very into reading these two books, the McCartney Legacy Volumes 1 and 2. Super big books, and they cover Paul's solo years from 1969 to 1980. So they take them from the end of the Beatles all the way through, to 1980. So I want to do all the Wings records. I'm going to count them down from 10. And I'm going to include the solo records, and I'm going to include the duet record because most McCartney fans find that a natural fit, that it's part of the catalog. It was included in the books as well, so I kind of took that as my sort of barometer. So starting at number 10, got from 1980, McCartney 2. It's just not a fantastic album. I don't enjoy it, but it did include Coming Up. Great single. Oddly enough, it's credited as a McCartney solo song, but when you turn it over, you've got the live version credited to Paul McCartney and Wings, live at Glasgow, and that was the hit single. Loved it. But the record version was the one John Lennon liked a lot more, and that's actually one of the things that helped get him involved. This and Rock Lobster got him back to writing songs, and obviously the result of that was Double Fantasy and some of those posthumous things that were available, because he got kind of prolific at the time. But part of what we're going to do here is we're going to talk about the record. I'm going to tell you my favorite track on the record, and then I'm going to tell you what the Beatles competition was doing. So we discovered it. Favorite track Coming Up. And the Beatles competition, was the only thing that came out that year was Double Fantasy. 3 monster hits off of that, just like Starting Over, Watching the Wheels, and Woman. So yeah. I'm going to go to number 9, and that's going to be Wildlife. This was a raw rush job. The basic ideas were kind of cobbled together. Some of the songs are long for no reason. There's nothing really clever on it. Favorite song on it is Tomorrow, and he had pretty good competition that year. You've got in 1971, John had a hit single with Happy Christmas, War Is Over. George did the concert for Bangladesh, and Ringo had Back Off Boogaloo. So decent year for the others as well. I'm gonna go number 8. McCartney 1 from 1970. This was kind of a therapeutic, cathartic thing for him. A little bit lazy in the songwriting. Too many instrumentals for my taste, especially you've got with that voice. It included Maybe I'm Amazed, which wouldn't become a hit until the live version came out in 1977. Favorite track on the record is Every Night, and this was a busy year to compete with the rest of the Beatles. I mean, this was 1970, so you had the Beatles themselves with Let It Be, and you had Hey Jude. John had the live piece in Toronto. You had the Plastic Ono Band and the single for Instant Karma. George had All Things Must Pass, and had some single action with My Sweet Lord and What Is Life. Ringo had Sentimental Journey and Beaucoup Blues, both the album and the single. Going to number 7, Back to the Egg. It's a much better album than most people give it credit for. You've got a new record label on Columbia, and you got a revamped lineup that were together pretty much for one record. There's 2 rockestra pieces here, which were interesting. Early days of MTV, we got to see that a lot, and you got to see all those guys from The Who and Led Zeppelin playing with Wings. Pretty cool. But yeah, much better record than most people give it credit for. It would have moved up on the list if this were on it. Good Night Tonight was a great single from 1979. And had they included it on the record, perhaps Back to the Egg moves up my list a bit. Favorite track on the record, Old Siam, Sir. Some Beatles competition that year. George with the self-titled album had Blow Away, and Paul did the Wings' Greatest on that year. So that was almost on competition with himself, but that was kind of the new label and the old label duking it out for his fandom. But I think we all bought both records, so it worked. Number 6, Red Rose Speedway. Gotta love a motorcycle on an album cover, right? 1973, originally supposed to be a double record. It was pared down to just a single LP. It was supposed to be more of a band effort, and the label wanted to get rid of all the stuff that came from Denny Lane and all the rest of the folks. So they really chopped it down, and caused a little bit of dissension in the band. It would have been better if Hi 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 and Sea Moon were on it. And again, maybe that moves up the list a little bit as well. Favorite track on the record? Big Barn Bed. Beatles competition that year? John had Sometime in New York City, which is kind of a terrible album, but I really like it because I had it when I was young, and it's one of those, the first thing that you love is the first thing you get. So that was given to me at a young age, which is a really weird gift to give a kid, but whatever. Number 5. A lot of people find this strange that it's high up on my list. London Town. Love this record. 1978. It's way better than it gets credit for. There's only 3 of the folks here pictured, but Jimmy McCulloch and Joe English both played on it. How could this record have been better? Could have put Mull of Kintyre on that instead of this, although it's great that it's on this, but Mull of Kintyre on London Town makes that a stunning record as far as I'm concerned. You also get Live and Let Die and Junior's Farm on this, so this was worth the price of admission. And a cool poster. What happened that year? Well, favorite track on the record, With a Little Luck. I know it's a single, but I'm that guy. Beatles competition that year. That Brown thing that they put out called Love Songs. It was like a double record set of all the Beatles ballads and slow songs and whatnot. And Ringo put out 2 records around that time. Ringo the Fourth and Bad Boy, both very forgettable. I can't remember anything that was on them. Going down to number 4, super important record to me when I was a kid. Wings at the Speed of Sound. It was my first, I call it a contemporary Wings album, in that I bought it when it was a new record. This was the first record I fell in love with as an album from Wings. It has all 5 members contributing a lead vocal. Jimmy has a great track on there. Joe English sings a great track on there. For all its kitsch and fun and all that, the Linda song's not that bad. I love Linda. She was awesome. Denny Lane gets 2 vocals on here with The Note You Never Wrote and Time to Hide. It was considered a commercial success because it had those big singles on it, Silly Love Songs and Let 'Em In. It was actually quite experimental. They did use vocoder on it, an octaver, marching snare drums, real wide variety of wind and brass instruments. And Let 'Em In is most likely the last single to chart that had a trombone solo in it. So it's a sad state of where we are these days. This is also the tour that produced Wings Over America. So I always kind of think of them in sort of the same sentence. And the film for that was great, even though it came out several years later. If you get a chance, watch Rock Show. It's great. Let's see what we got. Beatles. Favorite track off the record? Beware My Love. Beatles competition that year. Remember that silver thing called Rock and Roll Music that had like the old drawing of them on a silver background and like a hamburger and a milkshake and a Coke floating, and they played a bunch of the cover songs and some of their oldie rock stuff. Cool collection. I had it when I was a kid. They have disowned it. None of them were really happy with that. George had 33 1/3. Cracker Box Palace was that year. That Best of George Harrison compilation that combined both the Beatles stuff and the solo stuff, which was kind of weird with him sitting on the front of that old hot rod. Ringo had Ringo's Rotogravure and A Dose of Rock and Roll. Number 3. Fantastic record. 1971, Ram. This was a reaction to Wildlife, as raw and kind of put together quickly as Wildlife was, and the critics panned it, he decided he was going to do a full production record where it was put together and session musicians and whatnot. You got some of the Wildlife lineup, but you add David Spinoza on guitar, and the songs were really strong. It should have included Another Day as a single. He liked to have the singles that were outside of the records. I don't agree with that. I thought that Another Day would make this just unbelievable record. For most of my life, my favorite song would have been Uncle Albert, until I got older and became a better musician. And for the last several years, my favorite song has been Backseat of My Car. Beatles competition for 1971. John had the Imagine album and the single for Power to the People, and Ringo had a monster single in It Don't Come Easy. All right, going to number 2. Happy 50th anniversary to Venus and Mars. Absolutely. 1975. It's the first record with the classic Wings lineup. You actually have Jeff Britton and Joe English splitting drum duties, but once they got Joe, that was the lineup that was most visible with the videos and the live record and all that type of thing. There's so many different styles going on in this record, and before we had the opportunity to see live concert videos and VCR, when we used to get the VCR tapes of someone live at the Spectrum or whatever, you had to use it all up here. You had to imagine what the rock show would be like, and they pretty much nailed it with the sitting in the stands in the sports arena and seeing the sparkling drums and seeing the guitars, and then all of a sudden the volume. That was a magical feeling, and they pretty much captured it in that opening salvo of this record with the Venus and Mars / rock show intro. This would be my number 1 record if Junior's Farm was on it. That's my favorite Wings song, so that was a missed opportunity. Beatles competition for that year? It was a busy year, 1975. Just John alone had Walls and Bridges, single for Whatever Gets You Through the Night with Elton John. Number 9, Dream, my favorite Lennon song. That was the year Rock and Roll came out, and he had the single for Stand By Me. And the Shaved Fish compilation, which I had as a youngster, and I now have it again as an adult. George had a pretty good year. Dark Horse album, the Ding Dong single. He also, around the same time, had Extra Texture, the single with You, and This Guitar Can't Keep From Crying. Ringo had a pretty good year that year. Goodnight Vienna, album and single. Only You, the No 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 song, or No No song. Snookeroo, and Blast From Your Past compilation. So, big heavy year for Ringo. Number 1, you probably guessed. Band on the Run. This one was nostalgic for me. I had this on 8-track and played it endlessly on my blue General Electric 8-track player. It was my single most played 8-track. The album shouldn't be as good as it is. They had a lot of problems. They disbanded literally on the way to the airport, headed to Africa to record it. They get there, the studio wasn't complete. The demos and lyrics were stolen when Paul got mugged. He had to recreate the songs by memory. Personally, I prefer the US version because it includes Helen Wheels. Big missed opportunity. So on this one, Soily. There should have been a studio recording of Soily that ended up on Band on the Run, and that would have been crazy. It is number 1 on the list, but it would have been number half. Yeah, great track that missed out on that, but it did make the appearance on the live record, and great version of that there. Favorite track on the record, 1985. And pretty big year for Beatles competition in 1973 as well. The Beatles' Red and Blue albums were released around that time. Lennon had Mind Games, both the album and the single. George put out Living in the Material World and had a monster hit with Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth. And Ringo had a couple of big singles in Photograph, You're 16, Oh My My, and the Ringo album. So that's my look at the McCartney solo projects from 1969 to 1980, kind of coinciding with those two books. Love to hear what you think. Be nice. It's just my opinion. Some people like what I like, some people hate what I like. Just thought I'd talk about it, show you some records, and talk about some McCartney. If you get a chance, like and subscribe. I'd love to get up to over 100 subscribers. Maybe one day I'll get some more, but for now, just share with a friend. Tell them what you think. Until then, we'll see you on the B-side.